Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Kenya National Landscape Restoration Scaling Conference 2022. We're delighted that you could join us today, and we're glad that you're with us. My name is Laura Mkwana. I work for C4 eCraft, and specifically under the Regreening Africa program, and I'm your moderator for the day. So this conference is basically a follow-up to the previous conference, that is the Kenya National Landscape Restoration Scaling Conference 2021, which took place last year between the 9th and 16th of July, and it aimed to catalyze action towards restoration in the country. So this year, this conference aims to celebrate progress that has been made and celebrate the achievements that have been made from that conference with in terms of achieving the action plans, in terms of implementing the recommendations, and specifically with the restoration movement that has now been created. The specific objectives of the conference are as follows. The conference aims to showcase progress made since the 2021 conference in achieving agreed upon plans and the creation of a restoration movement. It aims to bring together stakeholders working in the restoration space to agree on key actions to support the implementation of the Forest and Landscape Restoration Implementation Plan 2022-2027 and the monitoring framework, discuss incentives and avenues for resource mobilization to support and scale restoration projects, especially those led by communities, youth, women, faith actors, and the private sector. It also aims to explore the role of existing practices and approaches to support the scaling of restoration efforts in agricultural, forest, and rangelands. And lastly, the conference aims to showcase approaches and models to enhance the inclusion of children, youth, and women in restoration efforts, and launch a capacity strengthening program for youth, women, and faith actors involved in restoration. So this conference, as you're aware, is taking place over the course of 2 days. That is starting from today and tomorrow. So today we're going to focus on forest and landscape restoration integration at the county level, just trying to see what are some of those opportunities that we can use to scale up such kind of efforts. And tomorrow's session will focus on now the next step with the movement that the conference has been able to catalyze. And hopefully we're aiming to get commitments on moving the movement forward. So today's session is basically has 3 main segments. We're going to have opening remarks by His Excellency Mutahi Kahiga from the Governor of Nyeri County. We're going to have a presentation on the presidential program on the restoration and the role of the county government in this directive, and that's going to be by Mr. Alfred Gishu, the head of Directorates of Forest Conservation. He's also the National Red Plus Coordinator and focal point at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. And we're also going to have a panel discussion with various county directors who are in charge of environment from around 5 counties, who are going to share their ambitions, their restoration ambitions, their plans, and what they've been able to do so far. And lastly, we're going to delve into breakout group sessions where we're going to explore further what is required to scale restoration across different landscapes. Then lastly, have closing remarks. With that said, I'm now pleased to welcome Mr. Brian Mudoka, the Senior Program Officer for the Water, Forestry, Natural Resource Management Committee at the Council of Governors, to lead the next sessions on opening remarks and the panel discussion. Welcome, Mr. Mudoka.
Thank you, Laura, for taking us through that session very quickly and highlighting the objective of this conversation, which is very important in light of the commitment and the advancement of climate change that we've witnessed, and also the ambitious restoration targets of the country setting. I think there is no better time to have this conversation today. And as you indicated, I would like to invite His Excellency, the Governor of Nyeri County. Next in session is the Governor of His Excellency Mutahi Kahiga, who holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Nairobi and a master's degree in education and leadership and University. He's still currently pursuing his PhD on education leadership and management from the same university. Is currently serving as chairman of the Central Region Economic Bloc and the vice chairperson of the Agriculture, Livestock and Cooperatives Committee in the Council of Governors. He has previously served as the chairperson of the Education Committee in the Council of Governors. Under his stewardship, Nyeri County has experienced exponential growth in all sectors, including environmental management and forestry, having awards as the best county in the environmental care and during the Gala Awards of 2022, and county with the highest tree cover at 45% as per the 2021 National Assessment by the Kenya Forest Service. Karibu sana, Your Excellency. The floor is yours to open the conference. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Brian. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Land degradation is a global environmental and developmental challenge. This one has continually threatened the country's and the county's development agenda and the livelihoods of its people. Though need for land for development, settlement, and agriculture cannot be ignored, unsustainable land management uses through uncontrolled and unplanned loss of agricultural cover and deforestation has led to food security concerns and environmental degradation such as soil erosion, water pollution, low rainfall levels. In fact, we are struggling with famine right now, and this one has exacerbated climate change effects. Noting that land use change and forestry is one of the largest contributors, in fact, contributing about 38% as of 2015 to Kenya's greenhouse gas emissions, and the country forest cover being less than 10%, I think it is up 8.8% as of 2021. Forest and landscape restoration is an urgent initiative to undertake. It is indeed critical to accelerate forestry and landscape restoration in initiatives if we are to meet our goals. Kenya's commitment to this is evident in the various policies and commitments of land by 2030 under the African Forest Landscape Restoration Initiative and the Bond Challenge, as well as a national target of attaining 30% recover by 2032. The President's commitment and call for action is one that every stakeholder, particularly counties, should take up and run with. The development of FOLAREP 2022 to 2027 is a great beginning. Its implementation is more important, ensuring no one is left behind. No sector, no county, no age bracket, no gender, no faith should be left behind. We have a race against time. If we are to beat climate change effects for the sake of our vulnerable communities, let us all play our part. Let us work with our CFAs and the WRUs, youth and women groups, cooperatives, and schools. Let us incorporate them and understand their indigenous initiatives, even as we bring in science. I say this because in matters environment, one's gains are nothing. If we are not replicated by one's gains are nothing if they are not replicated by the neighbor. It does not profit Kenya if Nyeri has a forest cover of 40%, and if we have counties with less than 1%, we still don't attain the 30% we are targeting. Therefore, let us actively mobilize resources around our activities and take advantage of the formulation for the third generation county integrated development plans to ensure counties include FRLR activities in it. Let us make use of the political goodwill therein right from our presidency, who has spoken about it and given the assurance that he stands to support the initiatives, to move forward with the implementation. And as we do, let us ensure that we create livelihoods for our most vulnerable communities, increase food security, enhance our living quality through improved environments, and honor God by restoring our land, the land which is his gift to man. It is only prudent that we take advantage of these short rains and scale up our restoration and our agroforestry activities by encouraging our people to plant trees and care for them. Let us provide them with the high-value tree seedlings to motivate them to grow the trees in their farms, even as we continue to sensitize them on the importance of the indigenous species. As you proceed with this 2 days conference, I wish you instructive deliberations that will spur us forward as a nation as we seek to attain our goals on forest and landscape restoration as a climate change mitigation strategy, as well as a means of ensuring food security in the county and as a means of livelihood for our people. Thank you very much. I will be asking, I know one of my officers will be telling you the activities we are carrying out in Nyeri County towards realization of our goals in terms of reforestation, rehabilitation of the riparian areas, agroforest, and many. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to wish you very, very fruitful deliberations. It is important that we walk away from a lot of talk and get to real action on the ground. That should be the way to go. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I now want to take this opportunity to declare the FOLAREP virtual conference officially opened. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. From my previous interaction with you, I can confirm you're a very passionate conservationist. I think the story you just said tells it all. And from previous statements addressed to the nation by the President, he reiterated that there needs to be a lot of peer learning between counties in forest cover and counties that are not leading in terms of the least counties in terms of forest cover in the country. I don't know, Your Excellency, whether you can hear me now. Your Excellency, I would like to appreciate you for finding time to join this call and for officially opening the call. And we confirm from your statement that you are very passionate about conservation and restoration initiatives in the country, and your story tells it all. And we will be in the next session gather a lot from your director on what the county is planning to do in terms of forest landscape restoration. I thank you for opening the conference, and I'll invite you to sit back if you can, if you have time to continue in the next session, or you can leave at your own time. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for finding time this early morning to join us and have this very important conversation. Thank you. We'll move on to the next.
Thank you very much, Brian. Like I said, I want to wish everybody the very best.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I will move on to the next speaker of the day, who is Alfred Gishu. Alfred Gishu is head of forest conservation at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. He also serves as National Red Plus Coordinator and focal point at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. He'll be taking us through a presentation on the presidential program and directive for restoration and county government. During this, I highlight the pivotal role that county government is playing when it comes to restoration. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you very much, Brian, and Your Excellency, the Governor of Nyeri County, distinguished participants, good morning. My name is Alfred Gishu. I head the Forest Conservation Directorate at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and I want to share with you this morning a program that seeks to enhance our national ambition on forest and landscape restoration that we are calling the National Strategy for Achieving and Maintaining a Minimum of 30% tree cover by 2032. You realize that in our previous discussions, we have been talking about 10% tree and forest cover by 2030, but the President has issued a directive that requires us that we enhance our ambition increase our tree cover, especially to 30%, and increase it within the course of the next 10 years. So this is what I'll be presenting to you this morning. And why we are investing in this program as a country is informed by knowledge that forests are increasingly being recognized for their contribution to climate, environmental stability, economic development, and socio and livelihood support systems. His Excellency the Governor has alluded already to some of these, but we also know that we are coming from a country that is classified as a low forest cover, and everybody across the globe is requesting all of us, especially those of us with a cover below 10%, to invest in actions that deliver a minimum of 10% forest and tree cover. And this has informed the presidential directive that we enhance our vision, we increase our forest cover to tree cover to 30% by 2032. And the program that has been launched is going to be implemented across the country. It will be what is called a whole of government and a whole of society approach. We are currently finalizing the work of our national strategy that will provide for an opportunity for very broad stakeholder collaboration and a shared responsibility, where the national government, the county government, the private sector, and communities will be expected to identify entry points, enhance their vision, support to innovative approaches, and commit to the process. So we are seeking to increase our tree cover to 30% because we know the importance of forestry, how it supports agriculture, how it supports our energy, how it supports our tourism and other sectors. We also want to enhance our forest sector contribution to national development. It is also aligned to what we call priority government development programs. We have priority programs on housing, priority programs on health, priority programs on manufacturing, and priority programs on food security. And this program that we are launching immediately for implementation over the next 10 years is intended to provide an opportunity for us to contribute effectively to this national priority development action. It's also about knowledge that forestry has an important contribution to a wide variety of ecological support services. We know it supports wildlife conservation. It provides, it's a reservoir for important wildlife species. We know our dryland species, dryland forests in this country are important for our livestock. They are important for livelihoods there. But more importantly, is where we find ourselves in, where climate change, especially biodiversity loss, a lot of land degradation across the country, and pollution are driving most of what we are calling transformative actions across the landscape to support our restoration efforts. We also have what we call policy and legal requirements. We are aware that the Constitution has a requirement that requires Kenya to maintain a minimum 10% tree cover. We have our Vision 2030 that talks about 10% forest cover. We have a climate, environment, and multiple other policies and laws, including the forest, that requires that we enhance our forest cover in this country. Again, our global commitments that this country has already subscribed to. His Excellency the Governor has talked about our commitment to restore 5.1 million hectares of degraded landscape by 2030. We seek to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in support of our national determined contribution. Kenya is a member of what we call High Ambition Coalition for Nature country, and we have committed as part of that coalition to halt and reverse forest and landscape degradation. Last year, we signed on to what we call Glasgow Climate Leaders commitment that seeks to reduce, to halt and reverse forest loss. And we have also made commitments on land degradation neutrality by 2030 as a contribution to UNCCD. So all these policies and the knowledge that we already know how important our forestry is, and is what is driving our actions across the board, driven by His Excellency the President, to transform our landscape, to reclaim our forests, to restore our ecosystems, and to ensure that they provide services at a level that can support systems across the country. But as we move towards restoration, it is also important that we understand what it is across the country that is driving change. We have been talking about deforestation. We have been talking about forest degradation. We are talking about land degradation. What is it within the country that is driving all these losses? And at the national level, we see a situation where most of the forest conversions are driven by other land uses. And we see this across all the landscapes. We see agriculture, we have seen settlements, and we have seen infrastructure strongly informing the land use changes across the country. We have issues of governance, we have issues of coordination and collaboration in the management of public and community forests. We have a situation where we are utilizing our forest and tree resources at a rate that cannot be fully sustained. We have issues of institutional capacity across the board, both at the national and county level. And then we also have, in some situations, land and forest tenure that is not secure to support conservation of forest investment and forest investments, especially in those lands that are community in nature. And we have also seen climate change and its impact also driving forest cover and land degradation across landscapes. So how do we want then to transform our landscapes? And we have proposed multiple interventions across the country that will deliver on the Kenya we want, on the 30% tree cover, on the 10% forest cover by 2032. And one of the areas that we must heavily invest in is in the area of seedlings production. And we are inviting all of us with capacity to support us in this. We want to raise, as part of the presidential program, 15.6 billion seedlings by 2032. And this is going to involve a heavy investment on seed correction and distribution of about 300 tons. The 15.6 billion seedlings will have to be raised through a program that will also involve availing information to all of us on areas where these seedlings will be planted and provide information on site species mapping. This is going to involve a lot of technical support from the institutions with the capacity to support. We want to protect those forests that we already have. Even as we want to support new forests across the country, let us invest in actions that protect what is available. Kenya Forest Service has forest that it is managing. The county governments are managing what we call community forests. We also have the private sector that is managing significant forest resources. We want to ensure that these forests are protected, that these forests are conserved, and these forests are sustainably managed. Those counties that have mangrove resources, we want to propose, because we already have a mangrove management plan, that they support implementation and rehabilitate areas of those mangroves that are currently degraded. And we've been able to establish that 17,000 hectares are available for restoration. On commercial forest plantations, we want to propose that we improve on productivity and management of public forests that are currently managed by Kenya Forest Service. There are opportunities definitely there for improved efficiency. And we also want to propose, where opportunities arise, that we support community efforts and the private sector to establish commercial forests on private land. And we also want to promote bamboo growing. We have rules, we have policies, and we have laws in this country that support sustainable tree growing across landscapes. And one of them is the agriculture farm forestry rules, and that speaks to the need for us to maintain a minimum of 10% forest cover within the farmlands. And we are proposing that we promote we see how we can incentivize implementation of these rules. And as part of that, we support establishment of agroforestry, adoption of high value agroforestry species Now, this program that we are proposing has already identified some important fruity trees that we can use as part of our forest and landscape restoration. So where opportunities manifest, for example, for mangoes, where opportunities manifest for macadamia, where opportunities manifest for avocado, we will encourage that some of these high-value agroforestry tree species are promoted, because we do not have necessarily to invest in tree growing that does not deliver a livelihood benefit. We will restore our degraded landscapes in the arid and semi-arid lands. This is where we have most of our livestock. This is where we have our national parks. We have degraded forest landscapes. We will provide opportunities for those of us with capacity to support actions that restore these areas. I've talked about the implementation of forest policies and legislation, but we are also encouraging the integration of spatial development plans into county integrated development plans. This is likely to identify areas within counties for forestry and tree development. Counties, through the Constitution, have assumed responsibility for conservation and sustainable management of community forests, extension forestry, and we are saying that we need to see how to strengthen counties, county governments especially, to take responsibility for implementation of this devolved forestry function. Kenya Forest Service also has a law that require to be effectively implemented. The Ministry of Agriculture have talked about. We have a national policy that speaks to the sustainable management of our redlands, that we seek to see how we can incentivize implementation of these laws. Let's move on. The Greening Kenya initiative, then we are talking about greening of infrastructure, institutions, urban areas in the country. And we know where most of this public infrastructure obtained. We are talking about rail lines, a lot of networks. We are talking about large settlements, dams, as well as the ministry departments and agencies in this country that have a lot of land. Strengthening of institutions that have responsibility for implementing actions. Kenya Forest Service, for example, the Kenya Wildlife Service, the county governments, where they do not have functioning forestry departments to assume laws and responsibilities, then we will be requesting that they be strengthened to undertake this function. Adoption of forests is another area that we want to tap into. Investments, heavy investments in public awareness, education, and sensitization. And as part of this all effort, then we will also be proposing that a national tree planting campaigns implemented by the government and with support from the county government and all stakeholders across the country. Investments in efficiency in wood conversion. I had talked earlier about unsustainable utilization. We see waste across the landscapes because of the technologies that we are at the moment utilizing to convert our wood into timber. A lot of wastage in utilization itself. And we are saying there are very, very big opportunities for investments in efficient wood conversion machinery, cookstove technologies, boilers within our factories, and alternative energy sources. And all these will, across the board, interventions will be accompanied by, where possible, incentives and awards provided. Then we will also continuously invest in technology and innovation to support our work. Now, this work comes with a heavy burden in terms of costs, and one of the interventions we'll be proposing for all of us is to mobilize additional resources. The resources available today cannot deliver on what we are proposing for ourselves. So we will be requesting for additional resources from the exchequer to forestry. And we'll also be proposing that the county governments especially invest in support forestry sector development. We will be mobilizing climate finance. We will be exploring opportunities for us to tap into carbon markets, including carbon trading, venture into public-private partnerships, the issue of revolving loans that are currently running in some countries, and possibilities of issuing green bonds, among other possibilities of enhancing forest finance across large scale. Now, in terms of governance, we are proposing that we have governance structures established across the various large scales. We will be establishing a national interministerial steering committee that will have membership from ministries, the county governments, the private sector, the civil society organizations. We will also be establishing interministerial technical committee, a multi-institution technical committee, but more importantly is that we are proposing the establishment of county implementation coordination committee that will be shared jointly by the county commissioners and the governors, so that all of us then can be a party to the whole program. And then the county implementation committee will coordinate actions at the sub-county and the ward level. And then we will, as part of our work, then invest in a monitoring and evaluation to track our actions and report upwards on performance. So what we expect, especially from county governments, we expect support in terms of coordination of county, sub-county, and ward activities. And this will be done in collaboration with the national government institutions, including Kenya Forest Service, NEMA, Kenya Forest Research Institute, and others that may be available at the county level. We seek the county government support in seedling production and rehabilitation of degraded forest, mobilization of resources through county allocations, CDF, ward development levy, and others. We seek support in strengthened partnership and collaboration, enactment of supporting policies and enforcement, support of private sector engagement and investments, and establishment and restoration of green spaces, parks, and arboretum, especially in the urban centers. The work that we are proposing for ourselves comes with a cost. And what we've been able to work out is that the full implementation of the presidential program will cost about 500 billion, but that number may seem big, but you should look at it in the context of the benefits that we seek to generate within the course of the 10 years and beyond, and what we are likely to lose in the event that we do not invest in this act. We will witness reduced supply of important products. We'll continue to see more frequent and severe droughts. We'll witness loss of ecological services emanating from degraded forest landscape and others. We've been able to estimate that the annual cost of inaction, if we don't do what we are expected to do, is in the range of 168 billion per year. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, then I come to the end of my presentation that briefly present the national program for forest and landscape restoration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alfred, for the very elaborate presentation that highlights the country's commitment moving towards enhancing accelerating the realization of restoration targets. We have a lot of questions on the chat and other questions from county governments. Now that you really implored upon county governments in the presentation to undertake or to work together with the national government in realizing these ambitious targets. But I request we move to the next session, then you keep your questions. Then we will combine the questions posed to Alfred Gishu with the questions that we will be posing to the directors due to the time constraint that we are having. Next on the panel, and just for purposes of introduction, my name is Brian Muthoka, working in the Council of Governors, supporting the Committee on Water, Forestry and Natural Resources, also Environment and Climate. And I will be your moderator for this session, which is bringing together county governments. And I recognize that we are a lot of county directors who came in solidarity to support their colleagues as they appear in this panel, as well as other stakeholders from the national government and civil society who joined us today for this very timely conversation. I'll proceed to introduce the panel that will be having, which will speak to the outline of landscape restoration ambitions and also integration of the same into county integrated development plans. And also they'll give an highlight of the challenges and opportunities that exist for further scaling up of the restoration initiatives that we are setting as a country, and to which the county governments and the national government will have to work together in the spirit of collaboration and consultation. We have Jennifer Kipkazi. Jennifer Kipkazi is the Director of Environment and Climate Change and Natural Resources from the County Government of Baringo County. We have Mr. Joseph Munyao, who is the Director of Environment and Climate Change from County Government of Makueni. We have, we're joined by Mr. John Mlamba, who is the Director of Environment and Natural Resources from Taita Taveta County. We have Mr. Kevin Musiega, who is the Director of Environment and Natural Resources from Vihiga County Government. We have Yvonne Mathenge, who is the Director of Environment and Climate Change from Nyeri County, as well as Grace Karancha, who is the Director of Environment and Climate Change and Natural Resources from Nakuru County Government. And first things first, Jennifer, because you are first in the panel, we'll start with you. And the question that you want us to touch on is an highlight of achievements, some of the achievements from the county government of Baringo in relation to forest landscape restoration implementation, and also highlight some of the challenges and opportunities for restoration in the county government. Thank you and welcome, Director. Jennifer.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Kipkazi, and I'm the county director, as Brian has just said. And I'm very excited to be part of this important journey towards restoration of our landscapes, considering Baringo is highly affected by so many issues which has really degraded our landscape. So some of the challenges which I can highlight from Baringo County is that we have inadequate legal and policy frameworks, and these policies currently has not really touched on issues which are related to forest restoration and even our landscapes, which are highly affected by gully erosions. Then we have population pressures all across the catchments, all across even the lowlands, and it is really affecting on our ecosystems. There is also limited value addition and product diversification for forest products, and I think this is what has led to now more destruction because of very little value addition. Then there is also the rise of water levels in our areas, Lake Victoria, Lake Baringo, and Lake Bogoria. Then the biggest challenge, which has really eaten us all along, is inadequate funding in the sector. And you'll find that every year since 2013, we are the lowest. We are given the bottom, the lowest. Then there is very little also youth participation in matters, issues of forest, and that is land restoration. And therefore you find that that is the group we depend on so much. Then inadequate monitoring and evaluation, also issues of inadequate staffing, low public and community knowledge on protection of the environment. And then also for us as a county, issues of insecurity has really given us a challenge, that is cattle rustling and all that, but the county is handling. And the last one is on issues of legal and land dispute, as well as land tenure system. A very good example is Lake Narok National Reserve, whereby communities are claiming ownership, and as it is in law, it is a national reserve. So those are some of the challenges. And then on land, again, you find that most of our land tenure systems is communally owned. So though we have a bigger hand in forming community groups, we will now form community forests for management of our landscapes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer, for taking us through that highlight of the challenges very quickly. I don't know whether you can briefly touch on any breakthroughs that exist at the moment in terms of what you've been able to achieve in terms of restoration, just in a few seconds.
I had a presentation which gives answers to all the panel questions, but now because it is a panel, I will just follow up from my side. So on the achievements as a county, I think the achievements, it has come from our experiences as a county, and the experiences which has really eaten us is issues to do with rising water levels, droughts, soil erosion, cutting across all areas, encroachment, invasive species. And this has now given us to look into some of the interventions. And as a county government, so far the achievements which we've had is development of legal frameworks and platforms. And some of these include Baringo County Climate Change Policy 2021, the Baringo County Climate Change Act 2022. We also have the Baringo County Sustainable Charcoal Act 2016 and a draft Forest Act. We also have institutions, legal institutions and platforms which have been created, and a very good one is the Baringo County Environment Committee and the County Steering Group, the CSG. So that is on legal frameworks and the platforms. Environmental sensitization and awareness programs, whereby at least annually we organize for approximately 60 awareness sessions through barazas, and also training of community groups. We have CFAs and charcoal producer associations. We have also other communities like community groups like the ones for water management, and therefore this has been an achievement as a county because at least 2 training sessions per year, per financial year. Promotion of tree planting programs. Thank you,
Director. Thank you, Director. Yeah. Thank you. The interesting thing with listening to county governments, they are in the front line and they interact with the issues that affect the communities. Thank you, Jennifer, for highlighting that. We move on to Makueni County, where we have Joseph Minyao, who is the director. I would like you to touch on your alignment now that we have the presidential program or directive on tree planting and the need to accelerate the alignment of our targets because you have to work in a one government approach to realize the afforestation and restoration targets in forest and rangelands. How is your county aligning to this in terms of setting off some of the restoration targets?
Thank you very much, Mr. Brian. The presidential directive has just come at the right time when we want to do reforestation at the counties. And the fact that counties have been missing the platform where they can engage between the 2 levels of the government, that is the national government and the county government. The directive by the national government, as well as the goodwill, it's a point to take restoration a step forward. Also, the restructuring of the CEC, the County Environment Committee, where the governors and the county commissioners will be seated in the CEC, also bring some light to restoration effort, because in the past, counties have faced challenge of uncommon approach to matters environment. So I think to counties, not particularly to Makueni, but to all counties, the presidential directive and as well as the ministry realignment of the CEC with the new structure, I think it is a point to note, and it is a plus to restoration within the counties.
Thank you, Joseph, for quickly touching on that. And I thank you for the quick highlight of what the county is doing. We move on to John Mulamba, who is the Director of Environment from Taita Taveta County. And I would like you to touch on whether it's been done in terms of mainstreaming of these forest landscape restoration initiatives into the CIDP so that subsequently sees its way into the annual development plan for the county government. John, you have the floor.
Good morning. And actually, like Brian has put it, it's that at the moment, actually working on developing our CIDPs. And what we have been pushing for is actually to see that we integrate and mainstream climate actions and interventions throughout the sectors, across the sectors. And I'm pleased to report that we have been able to ensure that forest restoration is one of the key items that has been given prominence, especially following the presidential directive of having at least planting around 15 billion trees by 2032. So likewise here in Taita, we have set aside restoration programs which are targeting particularly the catchments, the catchment areas, that is the Taita Hills, which have really undergone a lot of degradation as we speak. And here we have set out to also promote tree growing, tree crop growing, especially around the hilltop areas where most farming takes place. So what we are actually doing at the moment is to roll out on-farm tree planting initiative by promoting tree crops like macadamia, and especially in the highlands, we are looking at promoting macadamia trees and avocado trees. Then in the lowlands, we are actually focusing on promoting the mango trees and the citruses, which do very well. So I think that those are the main interventions that we are pushing in the current CIDP that we're developing.
Thank you, John, for that very interesting highlight of what you are doing from Taita Taveta County, which happens to be the county of the chairperson of forestry, His Excellency Andrew Modime. Thank you so much. We cross over to Vihiga County. Kevin Musiega, I'd like you to just quickly highlight the restoration opportunities that you see existing in the county government of Vihiga. You have the floor, Kevin.
First of all, thank you so much for recognizing Vihiga County to participate in this particular very important conference. I'm proud to say that Vihiga County is the third county with the largest tree cover. Yes, and just like many other counties, we have done legal framework, especially on climate change governance structures up to the ward level. We have a serious environmental problem. We have one of our national gazetted forests, the Maragoli Hills forest, that was seriously depleted up to almost 100%. Through His Excellency, the Governor, Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, we have had serious restoration of landscape programs in that particular gazetted forest. And we are lucky to have received a lot of support from Kenya Forest Service, Ministry of Energy, and many other partners that are really focusing on the gazetted forest that was seriously depleted. We also have a very strong community forest association that help us to co-manage the activities in the forest, especially when partners come. And right now, just like many counties, we are in the process of finalizing our county CIDP plan. And we have put in place serious programs for restoration of our degraded landscapes. And we also want to go further by expanding the school greening program. We have set aside 100,000 seedlings to support the school greening programs. We're also going to support the 4K clubs in schools so that each and every school can have woodlots that are supported by county, and our officers are going to be monitoring to make sure that the trees are not only grown, they're not only planted, but they're also grown. So I think that is as far as we are concerned. We want to, our target is actually to overtake Nyeri in terms of tree cover, so that we are, let's say, at 51% at the end of this, at the end of the CIDP, the 2023-2027 CIDP. And given that our county is not so big, we can do that very fast, and we call upon partners to support our objective. I think that's what I have for Vihiga County. Just to finalize, my governor is aware of this particular meeting, and is really wishing all the counties that they should really take up the issue of landscape restoration seriously, And I'm taking notes to give him brief, especially at the end of the conference. Thank you so much.
Kevin, I know you come from the county of the chairperson of Environment and Climate Change. Having interacted with him for a long time, I know he's very keen on the restoration targets. And a challenge to Nyeri County that you are being overtaken. So what are you doing to accelerate the afforestation initiatives? Your governor was here in the morning and really painted a picture that a lot is happening in the county government, which is true. So how are you accelerating these and how are you addressing the challenges? Yvonne, over to you.
Thank you, Brian, for the opportunity. Nyeri County, yes, indeed, we are doing what we can, giving our very best to ensure that we don't scale back, but rather scale up. And some of the activities that we are undertaking are on restoration, others are on conservation, others are on agroforestry. Allow me to begin on agroforestry because I think that's where our mandate as county government really lies. And on county greening program, we are doing that in conjunction with other stakeholders and particularly agriculture as a department. And as our governor spoke about in the morning, enticing the citizenry using high value tree seedlings. So we've been giving out a lot of fruit seedlings together with indigenous so that even as they take care of the fruit seedlings, they'll remember not to touch the indigenous as they do that. And we've done that to farmers and community groups, encouraging them to use that as boundary planting, and also coming up with woodlots in a few areas, especially in the semi-arid area of Kieni. Allow me also just to mention that Nyeri is 52% ASAL. So yes, it's not all green, or rather all of a different ecological zone. Another thing that we've been doing, another program that has really been at the heart of the governor is the Wangari Maathai program, dubbed the Wangari Maathai program, a program in which we are targeting to do 10 million trees at the end of 5 years. And the program was launched last year in February. And with this program, we are actually raising tree nurseries. Other than just doing tree seedlings, with this one, we are raising tree nurseries. And the model we're using is we are raising the tree nurseries from secondary schools, churches that are accommodating us, chiefs camps that are accommodating us. And we're doing this in conjunction with the Catholic Church, Archdiocese of Nyeri, headed by Archbishop Moheria. And together with a lot of support from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, it was actually launched by the former PS, Dr. Kito. And so far, under phase one, we've engaged 90 schools. And so those are 93 nurseries. And with phase one, we're expecting not less than 500,000 tree seedlings. That is by January, to be given out to institutions for planting and the community. So we're very much excited about this program. We've got a lot of support. Carefree is giving us seeds for free. The county government is providing potting papers. Net Fund has come in to support us with also potting papers. We're having KFLs a plan for us, raise a nursery of 1 million also in this first phase, together with Caritas. And so we are sure that by the end of 2032, we'll have met not just this 10 million, but scaled up that our target as Nyeri County has moved to 42% tree forest cover and 50% for tree cover. Something else that we are doing is in matters conservation, because if we don't tackle conservation, you will plant and people will still uproot because they still need to use this timber. So we've been doing an energy saving GCOS program that we are upscaling now to the level. So we've done in public institutions, and we've done a total of 32. At the end of this financial year, we'll have done a total of 32. We are doing biogas installations at household level using WAD funds. A pilot has already been completed in Agodi Gaki ward, and so that is going to be scaled up in this financial year moving forward. We're having water harvesting programs take place so as to reduce intrusion into the forest and also to encourage storing of water so that there is not much usage of it and need of usage of it, using water pans, and the county is providing dam liners. We are doing solarization of our boreholes, just reduce the water intake because we know there is a direct correlation to forestry. We're also doing reforestation of our county forest. We have 12 county forests, and we've partnered with Carefree to rehabilitate one of our county forests called Karema. And we're looking forward to getting partners for also Tomotomo Forest. It's not without challenges, but we are looking forward to doing much in that regard. Allow me just also to mention in terms of legislation, at least we've been able to do, supported by UNDP, we were able to do the Nyeri Forest Management and Conservation Act and Policy. We've also been able to set up an Environmental Management Act, and also, of course, on climate change, quite a number of legislation, including the climate change fund regulations that we are looking forward to ensure that they support forestry issues at the community level. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's a pleasure to listen to you and read some of the things that Nyeri County is doing holistically across the environment and natural resources. Thank you. We cross over briefly to Nakuru County. Grace Karancha, Director, Environment and Climate. Using Nakuru as a case study, what do you think would be the restoration opportunities and support areas that you request partners to support you? Grace.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be in this forum, and the opportunities are very many for us. Like, for example, in Nakuru, we have land that we can be able to utilize as a raw material so that we can have more forested land. There's also an opportunity whereby you can resource mobilize through partners who are very key. Like, for example, Green Belt movement is a key stakeholder in this space. And as a government, you can also resource mobilize within, whereby, like Nakuru, we have been able to say that within our plans that we are supposed to ensure that by 2030, we have been able to restore the forest landscape up to 75,000 hectares. That one, if you tabulate in terms of trees, you're talking of 120 trees grown in that space. At the same time, on the areas of legal framework, many of us, maybe we do not have maybe applicable laws. So it's an opportunity for us, for them that do not have that platform or structures in place, we can be able to be supported in terms of having the right legal framework. Nakuru County has legal framework in place. And right now we are almost finalizing our sustainable forest management and tree growing bill, which we feel the next months will be having it in place. Also be supported by Climate Change Act, and we also have Sustainable Energy Access and Climate Action Plan that really stipulate on how stakeholders' involvement in this sector can be very important. So in a nutshell, I would say we have legal framework, capacity building, institutional strengthening, like, for example, mapping out all the people who are dealing in issues of tree growing. For example, in Nakuru County, we have been able to map out over 500 tree seedling propagators that are drawn from the county and also at the private sector. You bring them on board, then together we coordinate together with the KFS. We've been able now to ensure that we have the trees ready by the time we are ready to grow them. At the same time, within the CIDPs that you are developing currently, it's a very good opportunity for us to mainstream all the landscape restoration programs in our sector. For example, in agriculture, we've been able to mainstream that aspect of ensuring that we do agroforestry, encouraging the farmers to do high value trees, in terms like Nakuru, in terms of mangoes, grafted and ungrafted avocados, and also macadamia. So we have a lot of opportunities. We have the land, we have the will, and we have what we can be able to strengthen the institution, have the strengthen the capacity of the people who will be undertaking this activity, and ensure we have community and stakeholders involvement, because we cannot be able to do without others. Then rigorous education and awareness on conservation, protection, and restoration of our forest landscape. The opportunities are many, as I have said, and at the same time, we can still anchor. We always say that there is inadequate resources, but resources is in terms of intellectual capacity, the money, the material, and everything. So we can be able to co-opt whoever has the resources in terms of money can bring on board, whoever have this, the resource in terms of intellectual capacity can bring it on board. If we are able to harmonize all those resources together, we'll be able to achieve what we want as a team. And in the long run, we are going to decarbonize our cities, our counties, and also making sure we are able to climate proof all our projects, because when we do that, we also have at least in a space of to say 50 by 100, at least you can utilize a space, even if it's not percent because the space is small, at least you have 3 or 5 trees, which include edible landscape. So we'll be supporting the whole chain of both the health and environment, and in the long run, improving the public health of the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Grace. I think you covered a lot of ground in a very few time frame. And I would like to appreciate you all who have been in this panel. Very fruitful, very interesting to hear what is happening in the front line. And we are constrained with time, and we have a lot of questions on the chat. We have less than 10 minutes for questions and any interventions. But I would like to request the distinguished participants, if you're posing a question, please direct it to one of the directors and also to Gishu, but I would like her to start with the questions to Gishu. Then we come to the directors. Please make your questions very brief due to time. And the floor is open. Just lift your hand up and speak to the mic.
I just wanted to highlight one question, 2 questions from the chat that were directed at Mr. Gishu. One was around how we avoid invasive species. There was a particular focus on prosopis. And also a question for the ASALs on what is the plan to bring back perennial grasses. So maybe we can start with that, and then I see Kiunga Kareko has lifted his hand also.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, and thank you, Nick, for this opportunity to ask my question. Thank you, Your Excellency, Governor, and Alfred Gichu for your presentation. My questions go to Alfred Gichu. Number one, when you talked about the strategy number 1 about planting and protecting 15.6 billion trees, I was wondering whether the 15.6 billion trees will only be established through planting, or we could also use other strategies like managing and protecting natural regeneration. Then the next question is on the governance and those governance structures that you have presented. I was wondering whether there is a relationship between those governance structures and what we have in FOLAREP 2022-2027, which has now been finalized with our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiungo. Let's take another question from Paul on Google.
Thank you, Brian. And I appreciate all the presenters led by Alfred for those very good presentation. My question is maybe it's a concern in a manner. I think for us to have successful restoration efforts in our country, we need to have a multi-sectoral approach in dealing with issues. For example, personally and based from my experience as a practitioner, I realized that most of the landscapes in Kenya and Africa by extension, there's a lot of degradation which arises from livestock, uncontrolled grazing of livestock, both small and large ruminants. And there seems not to be any concerted effort to manage this issue, because larger part of not really being successful in restoring degraded landscapes, and many even in the ASAL areas, is because of the improper management of livestock. And this is also moving, encroaching into the parks when we deal with wild animals. And we need to really look at how do we manage our livestock? How do we plan the use of our land resources in such a way that all the sectors come together and agree on the best way possible? Because this is a very big issue even in gazetted forest areas. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Dr. We cross over, Gishu, you respond, you'll take your questions, and then we'll have two county officials, Grace and Yvonne, intervene on the other questions that are posed by Mick. Then, unfortunately, due to time, we may not take any other questions. Over to you, Gishu.
Thank you very much, Brian. And I want to start with the last question that was raised by Paul Google. And we are talking about tree growing. And I in one of my slides, I talked about the need for us to invest in a discussion across the country on what the problem is. Because more often we invest in actions around tree planting and we generate a lot of publicity around it. But because of lack of understanding on what the driver of current forest loss is, we, in a number of occasions, invest in exercises in futurity. And Paul has just said about that there's a problem of livestock. So what's the point of planting seedlings in an area that you know those seedlings will not see the light of day? So you invest in actions that you are fully aware will deliver the resource that you are looking for. So it's not just about tree planting. It's about addressing the underlying drivers of forest loss. That is how you invest in actions that deliver permanent, in actions that we are looking for at the end of the day. From Mr. Kareko, the 15.6 billion seedlings that we seek to across various landscapes, this is what is going to be achieved through both planting and natural regeneration, where we see opportunities for it supporting our actions. And some of the actions that we are proposing is, for example, around enhanced protection and conservation of some of our major landscapes, especially the public and community forests, to support natural regeneration of those areas. In terms of governance, I think there's an opportunity here for us to see how we can have additional discussion to link both the governance structures that we are proposing in the strategy and what is proposing under the forest and landscape restoration. But you may see that there is a lot of a linkage between the two efforts, because what we are proposing, for example, is a governance structure at the county, sub-county and ward level that brings on board institutions and other actors within those landscapes that can inform how we need to invest in landscape restoration. So we can look at that further to see whether we may need to take on board the structures that have been proposed under the FOLARE program. When we talk about forest and landscape restoration across the country, it is not just about tree planting. Where opportunities manifest for a landscape restoration that does not involve tree planting, we will, as a country, invest in those efforts. And we know that we also have grasslands in this country. They have been degraded extensively. We may wish to propose then actions that will not necessarily establish forests, but that enable those grasslands to deliver on their environmental and social benefits better. If the opportunity is there for tree-based interventions, then we can go in. But basically, the idea is not to change land uses where it is not necessary to do that. In terms of invasive tree species, I had indicated in my presentation that we will go into additional discussion on how to identify tree species that are best for various sites across the landscape. And this is a discussion that we have had with KEFRI and other stakeholders with the capacity to support this work. And so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we have other species like prosopis that we are now developing a strategy for its management and control. So this is an area that we must be careful about as we engage in scaling up efforts across the country in terms of forest and landscape restoration. I've heard about very, very important activities going on across the various counties. And the currently cover across Kenya is about 12%. So we still have a long way to go. We have 80% of our land that is bare. A landscape restoration potential that we did in 2016 and supported that work established that we still have about close to 38 million hectares of land in this country that is available for landscape restoration. And we need to see how we can scale up then the current actions across the various counties to see whether what we are proposing today can further be scaled, even as we discussed how to incentivize actions. I've not had, for example, proposal on how we will incentivize private sector engagement and investment, because you'll realize that most of the work that we are proposing will be done across agricultural landscapes, and we need to see how those farmers, especially and the private sector players, will see value in investing in tree growing activities. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Alfred, for the very elaborate response to all the questions posed to you. We'll cross over to Kevin Musiega from Vihiga County, who will respond to the questions posed to county governments on how they are doing to manage the rising and restore degraded lands, and also strengthening of governance of restoration efforts in the county. Over to you, Kevin, if you can hear me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brian. County government, first of all, they have challenges with the flow of funds from the exchequer to various county governments. So you will find most programs that are supposed to be aligned to landscape restoration are sort of experiencing hitches because of the slow transfer of funds from the exchequer. However, there is a high level commitment in most counties to restore their landscapes, and there are various private partnership arrangements. There are various partners that have come on board. Various counties. I was saying, due to the slow flow of funds from the exchequer to county governments have sort of entered into an arrangement with private partnership. We have, especially maybe the Equity Bank for the case of Vihiga County, where they've been able to give us seedlings worth over 2 million shillings to support in landscape restoration. We also have other line departments within counties like agriculture, like water, that receive various private partners, private corporates to support, especially in spring protection, spring water protection, wetland protection, and there are several efforts going on in many counties in terms of landscape restorations. For example, in Kakamega and Vihiga County, we have a shared forest, that is the Kakamega forest that extends into Vihiga. There are several landscapes within that particular forest restoration. So there are various partners coming on board to protect the forest first by fencing it. Then after protection, we are going to have major tree planting in lands that are degraded. So I think this particular conference is really important to highlight the challenges that counties are going through, because it is through this forum we can get partners to support counties achieve the presidential directive of planting over 10 billion trees. I think other colleagues may contribute from various counties, but it's a challenge that's across most counties. Thank you so much, Brian.
Maybe one more question to any of the county directors, and maybe yourself, you can also intervene. You realize that there are still the issue has been about the coordination and the working relationship between the two levels of government, especially at the county. And in respect to some of the shared resources that are being managed at the county level. So what could be your recommendation in terms of strengthening, because the governance and the structures at the county level and the coordination, the intergovernmental should be strengthened before we are to create a conducive environment for action and for restoration under the presidential directive. Any robust recommendation on how this can be better done?
I think the problem seems to be what I will call the small people, as in the counties here, because at high level there is a lot of synergies. There is a lot of synergies when it comes to implementing programs that require both levels of government. But my suggestion would be we just go to the law. The Constitution is very clear on the roles of the counties in terms of landscape restoration. The Forest Act 2016 is also very clear on the roles of county government in terms of landscape restoration. But I think it will be important we have some capacity building sessions with various counties, within various counties. You call us in such meetings so that people can be explained to what extent they can go in terms of complementing efforts from both levels of government. Any other fellow director can.
So in a few seconds, because we have eaten up in time for the next session. Any fellow director willing to chip in? John Lamba, please carry on.
I think one challenge in terms of coordinating some of these activities between the two tiers of government, we had these tips, the implementation of the transition implementation plans. I think this one has not worked very well. And in our I think this financial year, we have set aside some funds to actually sit down with KFS and try and review the tips that were earlier signed by both governments, so that actually we ensure that we start implementing these fully. So I think that is one area that really needs our attention at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. If you have been a panelist, you could just switch off on your video and wave as we come to a close of this. Alfred, I don't mind if you can also switch on your camera and wave. And John, thank you so much. I think we have to close this session, and I really thank you. But one key message that comes out of this entire conversation is the need for one, aligning all our efforts to the Constitution in terms of the functional assignment between the two levels of government, so that we are able to complement each other in whatever that we are doing. I thank you for being very cooperative and also listening into the conversation throughout this very interesting and timely conversation. And I hand over back to Mick and Laura to take us through to the next session. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian, and to the panelists. I think that was a very fantastic session that highlighted both the presidential directive as well as the role of the counties, as well as what has been taking place. We had planned to have a longer breakout session, but due to the time that we spent in the last panel, which I think was really well spent, we're going to have a slightly shorter breakout. But I think it still gives us an opportunity to be in slightly smaller groups, to have a discussion around some of the key questions, and maybe to contribute to some of the questions that were still outstanding. So we have decided to go into 4 groups by the different types of landscapes that we have. So there will be one group looking at ASALs, one on mid-elevation croplands, one on highlands and water towers, and another on coastal zones. So when we open the breakout rooms in just a moment, you will be able to choose which group you go into, and you can select based on the type of group that you feel that you would like to contribute to. The questions for our discussion in the breakout room is what practices and approaches are used or could be used for restoration in this particular type of landscapes, and what is needed to support counties to achieve land restoration. We can be talking about collaboration, different governance structures, resources, etc. We just remind you, when you're in the breakout room, we'll still have about 50 people in each room. So please mute your microphone unless you're speaking, raise your hand. There will be a moderator in the different rooms. So once you're in the room, there will be a moderator to guide the discussion. So the breakout rooms, I'm just going to open them now. You should be able to go to the bottom of your screen if you're using a computer, click out breakout rooms and choose the room that you would like to go into. If you're on a mobile phone, it should be on the side. Once you see the breakout rooms, click the one that you would like to go into, and then you will be directed into the breakout room. And as I mentioned, there will be a moderator in the breakout room. So the breakout rooms are now open. Please select your room. We'll be there for about 20 minutes to have a conversation. And if you are not able to go into a breakout room, I will stay in this main room and help you direct into the breakout rooms. So please, I hope that you are able to see the breakout rooms now and start selecting the breakout rooms that you would like to go into. Welcome back, everybody. I think we could do a quick recap from the rooms and then move to Brian to close. So Laura, would you like to share from the breakout room that you were leading?
Thank you so much. I was in the group that was discussing the mid-elevation croplands restoration, and the discussion centered around, we started with the practices and approaches that can be used. And the main ones which are coming out was agroforestry. We need to engage in soil health assessments and engage in indigenous crop management practices. So when it comes to agroforestry, if we can start with that, we need to ensure that we use high value agroforestry trees, but then at the same time, we need to look at how we have to ensure that we are planting the right trees, because some trees, they might be high value, but they're not compatible with some crops. So we need to look at that. And we also need to look at now carry out soil health assessments. So yes, we're talking about, I think I was at the point of soil assessments even before engaging with in agroforestry to ensure that the soil is healthy, and engaging in practices that ensure that the soil is not degraded, maybe integrating more organic and nature-based solutions to maintain the soil health. Then also working with farmers and empowering them to ensure that they understand and the need to engage in some of these sustainable agricultural systems and understand the causes of degradation, especially for the soil. And there was also an approach to promote agroforestry that was proposed, such as now forming farmers group to promote that. Then there's also a point on using technology such as the Regreening app to monitor such kind of efforts. There was the integration of indigenous crop management practices, the organic manure, and also they brought up the need to document such kind of practices because this was not something that was happening before. Then soil erosion control, now integrated management of soils. I think there's a bit of repetition here, but bear with me. I'll organize them better. Integrated soil management, use of soil microbes, now trying to look at how, yes, in as much as these inorganic fertilizers are not so good, but just trying to look at how they can be used in a much better way. Then the production, one thing that farmers was pointed out that farmers lack, they have kind of a limited access to tree seedlings. So maybe Kefre and Kefres producing certified seeds and then selling them to the agrovets where the farmers go for their farm inputs would be a way to solve that.
So much, Laura. Is there any last point you'd like to make before we go on?
Yes.
We'll be sharing the notes so people can see the detail if there's any key messages that you want to highlight, and people feel free to add your other additional comments in the chat if you feel that something's missing.
Okay. So I think the last thing is the support required. The county governments need to provide extension services, probably in collaboration with private sector actors, then develop spatial plans to delineate areas for croplands and avoid and enforce them, then collaborating with private sector actors, engaging in multi-sectoral consultations to bring the various experts in the agricultural sector, the restoration sector, and access and market linkages. Thank you, Mika.
Thank you so much, Laura. And are you going to share your screen for the next presenter? That would be great.
Yes. Okay.
I think maybe Dawn, if you'd like to go next from the group that you led.
So thank you so much. So I was in the group that was discussing on the highlands and water towers.
Oh, okay.
So some of our practices were such as tree crop farming, of which we had the Taita Taveta, which was very interesting, that they also have atolls and highlands, but he chose the highlands. So we had tree crop farming, whereby they give seedlings, especially the macadamia seedlings. And then some of the practices were also community involvement, capacity building, incentive programs to support and encourage land restoration. And actually for the incentives, we have like just people giving them beehives so that they can have those beneficial enterprises. And then increasing benefits for stakeholders, and then the nature-based enterprises with economic benefits. We also had the livestock improvement, which was very interesting because of overgrazing in the forested areas. So just keeping livestock outside the forest, and by also encouraging these farmers to grow fodder in their farms instead of just going to forests for grazing. And then participatory forest management plans, and these plans have to be implemented as agreed. Then adoption of technology, especially the monitoring and evaluation systems, quality planting materials, whereby you have various seedlings. So just having seed banks at county levels, adjudication of community land, and also tap into indigenous knowledge system, and also just reversing land degradation.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Great to hear that from the Highland Water Towers group. And please feel free to add more comments in the chat. Handing over to Veronica.
Team was on coastal region. I'll ask Esther to kindly present.
So in the coastal region, I will look at the practices that could be used for restoration and then the support that the counties need. So on the practices, we looked at promoting agroecology as an alternative farming method. That would mean improving the ecosystems as well as improving the livelihoods of those people living there. We looked at the blue economy and the mangrove. So we need to upscale the planting of the mangroves to maintain that economy. We also looked at the county government through sensitization and collaborations with the Kenya Forest and the Marine to coordinate the restoration. We also looked at the conservation of the baobab tree to maintain the diversity in the coastal region. So on the support that is needed for the counties, we have looked at the technical backscoping on restorations. Most people, they don't have the guidelines on how to restore this. So it would be important to get the guidelines on how to restore the degraded areas. We also looked at developing an action plan at the county levels because there are different approaches to restorations of different landscapes. For example, there's the mangroves. The approach to restoring the mangroves could be different to restoring the quarries. So we need to look at specific approaches to that. Then we also said that there's need to map the stakeholders and bring them on board. There's also the need to identify the gaps that exist at county levels. And the second last point, we looked at monitoring to ensure the continuity and survival of these projects. And there's also collaborations between the national and the county governments to achieve these objectives, as well as linking the civil societies and the NGOs when developing the CIDPs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. And our last presentation from Caroline.
Thank you. If someone can share the screen for me, that would be helpful. So some of the measures is drought-resistant tree varieties, and then also planned grazing, and then livestock crowds have been used to propagate grass. Then measures to control soil erosion, then clearing and reseeding with indigenous tree and grass seeds, and then agroforestry, assisting farmers in technical support where they do identification and soil matching, then pasture management, restoring of depleted water ecosystems and water springs, afforestation programs, involvement of youth and women in tree planting and restoration initiative by enterprise development, mechanized restoration as well as manual restoration, utilizing schools, and then for support for the county government, CDIPs to integrate the FOLAREP, then counties to localize the FOLAREP, and then also finding extra funding sources for the counties beyond the exchequer, and then also the extension services, revival of the extension services. Yes, those are some of the few. I will add more. We didn't have time to type everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, and to all the breakout rooms. And thank you all for staying on for this extra half an hour. I think it's really wonderful to have the time for the breakout rooms, and we will have a networking session at the end of the conference tomorrow. So there's another opportunity to meet and talk and share views. As I've written in the chat, we have a site for the conference where we will be posting the recordings, the presentations, and all the information. So you can access that there. I would now like to pass over to Brian for a vote of thanks and closing remarks. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mick, for taking us through that session. I'd like to appreciate all the county governments who managed to join us for this very important conversation, and also the national government for being present here, and stakeholders drawn from civil society and who came, and this is just a commingling of ideas that we share together on restoration. And it's just a confirmation that we all heading towards the same direction in terms of prioritizing the actions that we need to invest in, both at the national government and at the county level, coming together for a common cause. Allow me to appreciate also the people who made this happen, the ICRAF and all the other stakeholders who we may not know, but played a very critical role in making this happen. I think I receive our appreciation. And also thank you all for staying on the call. Some of the participants dropped off. All right, thank you all that were able to stay on until this moment. I thank the governor in absentia for opening the session, and also Alfred for giving us a very important discussion and presentation on the presidential directive. Allow me to say a few things, not in any order of importance, but some of the key things that I find should really shape the discussion and the restoration agenda. And one, for county governments, I think we need to look at how we can better enhance the conducive policy and legal environment to support the restoration targets and ambitious targets that we are setting. That can be done through existing policy and legal frameworks. I know some counties anchor it under climate change acts, and also others are really prioritizing it through the forest tree growing policies and laws that they are putting in place. Another thing which should always guide our intervention is adhering to the functional assignment between the two levels of government, because I think that's where it starts all our commitment. National government will come in hand to capacity build and drive the policy agenda, and county governments will be there to ensure that they domesticate some of the legislations on natural resources and forestry. And that way we will be able to move together. There will be enhanced political goodwill. There will be enhanced conducive policy and legal environment for the same. Realizing that we live in a world of limited resources, county governments will come and set out ambitious targets, but also there is the need of resources because there exists a resource gap in the counties to complement, and we need resources to complement the existing sources, because what you realize in counties, there are some sectors that will receive more allocation than others, not for any reason, but due to the competing needs. Health, water, and others, education might get more allocation as opposed to other departments such as forestry and climate change. But I think this is where we need partners to come on board, appreciating the role of many stakeholders who are also in the sector, NGOs and other community-based organizations working in counties. I think we all should complement efforts, and also channel resources to restoration targets. I think that way we'll be able to achieve what we are setting. Intergovernmental coordination bit, I think this is one of the areas that discussions should be channeled also. The intergovernmental platforms and framework provides a platform between the two levels of government and can co-opt development partners and also stakeholders in the sector to drive environment and climate change and forestry agenda. I think this is one of the discussions we as a Council of Governors and the Minister of Environment and Forestry are starting again, so that this can strengthen the collaboration, and the voice of the two levels of government can come together, co-opt partners and private sector to come together and discuss what is a priority for the country. We need also to invest in raising awareness of the communities, realizing that we live in a time whereby we need to restore our forest and rangelands, and also so that we can really combat and confront the menace and the ecological emergency, which is the climate change and the climate change. Research should be also at the center of all our actions, and I think this also should be prioritized so that we are able to diversify livelihood options and other trees, species, varieties that really can withstand harsh conditions, because we are looking at the restoration targets. They target all the counties, ASAL counties, and everywhere in the country, and I think we should be able to do the same. Moving on to public participation, I think public participation is even recognized in the Constitution, and it is very important in every initiative that is undertaken. We should value the voices of the people, the communities, because they are in the front line and they interact with some of the adversities, and so we should always accord them a listening ear in whatever we are saying. And also the need to also strengthen forest sector monitoring, so that we can be able to really know where we are, where we need to put more effort, and where we need to look at, prioritize moving forward. Spatial planning should not be forgotten. I think these are delineates different zones that require conservation needs and also restoration. I think county governments are working towards the same. There are challenges to do with resources, with the discussion that development of some of the plans may be expensive, but I think we will be able to overcome this together, collaborating with the national government and all actors in the space, because we are doing this for our people. We are doing this for prosperous and democratic counties. Thank you all, and come back to you, Mick, for anything that might have been left. Thank you so much.
Brian, I think that was very comprehensive, a great summary. Thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful first day of the conference. Really incredible to look at the perspective of the counties. Thank you to all the speakers, all of those that participated, and we look forward to seeing you online tomorrow. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day.